Welcome back to the Dialogue and Quest Master 3.0 tutorial series. In this video we're going to create our very first dialogue and explore how the dialogue system works. In this episode we'll take a quick tour of the dialogue editor, configure our characters and look at the different ways to link them to a dialogue, either through speaker data assets, direct setup inside the dialogue, using tag-based linking or direct references. Then we'll see how to actually play a dialogue in-game, by calling the play dialogue function directly, using the dialogue actor component, or by integrating with Interaction Master. Let's get started. First, we'll create a new folder to keep everything related to the dialogue system organized. Open that folder, then right-click in the content browser and select Dialogue Master Dialogue Asset. Give your asset a name and open it. The dialogue editor appears. We have the main graph area where we'll build our dialogue tree, and the details panel on the right. At the top of the details panel, you'll find the dialogue level settings. This is where we configure the actors involved in the conversation, the player and any NPCs. You can define multiple NPCs if needed. You'll also notice a few additional properties. By default, the asset is created as a cinematic dialogue. Voices are spatialized and cinematic cameras are used. You can disable this if you want a free movement dialogue, where characters talk while the player still has control and no cinematic cameras are used. There are also several animation-related options available. Now let's look at how actor configuration works. There are two ways to configure an actor. Speaker configurations, recommended for characters that appear in multiple dialogues. Configure them once and reuse the setup everywhere. Local configuration inside the dialogue asset, ideal for minor NPCs or one-off conversations. In an actor configuration you can define a variety of settings. Their display name, a unique identifier for the tag linking system, a class filter to optimize how the system finds the right instance, a default camera, the linking method, and even 11 Labs voice parameters for automatic voice generation based on text. This feature will get its own dedicated video. Regardless of which method you use, you can override specific options in the overrideable actor info section if needed. Now, let's create a speaker configuration for the player. I'm going to create a subfolder to store all our speaker configurations. To create one, right-click in the content browser and select Dialogue Master Speaker. Give your configuration a name and open it. Inside this asset, we can define all the properties for our player character. Actor name is the text that will appear in subtitles when the character speaks. Actor unique identifier is the unique tag used by the tag linking system to find the correct in-game instance. This tag must match exactly the one we'll set on the character blueprint later. Actor class filter helps the tag linking system find the character more efficiently. For the player, I'm using the BP_third-person character class, so I'll use that as the filter. Actor node color lets you define the display color of this actor's nodes inside the dialogue graph, making it easier to visually distinguish speakers while editing. Default camera mode lets you choose between Dialogue Master's camera shot system or level-placed tagged cameras. This can also be used with advanced camera systems such as black eye camera. I'll cover that in a separate tutorial. For now we'll use the built-in camera shot system. Default shot defines the camera angle used by default for this character. For the player, I recommend front right player camera. Camera additive offset allows you to fine-tune the camera position. Useful if your character is taller or shorter than the default UE mannequin. NPC linking method lets you choose between tag linking or manually linking the actor. And finally, we have the 11 Labs voice parameters which we won't use in this video. Save your configuration and go back to the dialogue editor. We can now use this speaker configuration in our dialogue. When you right-click on the graph, you'll see several categories: animation association options, body and facial, automatic selection utilities, and of course the ability to add dialogue nodes. Let's add a dialogue line node for the player. When a node is selected, you can view its properties in the lower section of the Properties panel. There are many parameters available, but most of the time you'll mainly work with the fields inside the replicate structure. This includes the spoken text, the text displayed in the subtitles, the options for controlling the line's duration. By default it uses the voice sound's duration, or the default duration if no sound is defined, and default duration, which lets you set a custom duration when no voice sound is used. You also have voice sound to play an audio file, face lip sync anim montage to trigger a facial animation, and body anim montage for a body animation. Next is the camera shot array, which lets you override the default camera angle, either by choosing a specific shot or by defining several options for random selection. You can also replace the camera shot with a level sequence. This will be covered in another tutorial. At the bottom of the replic structure, you'll find conditions and actions, which we will explore in the next video. Below that, you can override voice settings for a specific line, and at the very bottom is the data extension system, which will also be covered later. Let's enter some text for the line. You'll see that the text now appears on the node in the graph. You'll also notice warnings because no voice sound or facial animation has been assigned. Depending on your project type, you may not want to see these warnings all the time. You can disable them in the project settings. If you need this, go to Edit Project Settings, scroll to Dialog Master, Dialog Editor, and you'll find several parameters. The ability to change the editor font, useful for languages not supported by the default font, customize the editor colors, enable or disable warnings, set default values for new dialog nodes, and configure 11 Labs parameters. Let's return to the dialog editor. For a dialog line to play, it must be connected to the start node. You can then create additional lines for a specific actor by dragging from the output pin of an existing node. Let's add an NPC to demonstrate this. Once the NPC is configured in the asset, a new entry appears in the context menu. Now let me show you a very useful feature. I prepared a small text-based dialog earlier. You can copy that text and paste it directly into the dialog editor. The nodes will be created automatically. If you use an LLM like ChatGPT to generate dialogue, you can ask it to normalize its output using the same format so you can paste it directly into the editor. Extremely convenient. Another helpful feature is the ability to add comments to the dialog graph, allowing you to organize things cleanly once your dialog tree grows. You can choose the comment color just like in blueprint graphs. Good. Now that our dialog is created, we'll configure our character to use tag linking. Reopen your actor configuration asset and copy the actor unique identifier. Then open your character class. To locate it quickly, you can go through the game mode just like in the previous video. Go to the default pawn class field and locate the asset. Open the blueprint. Search for tag in the class properties and add an actor tag. Paste the tag. Remember, the actor unique identifier and the actor tag must be exactly the same, otherwise tag linking won't work. Now let's look at how to play a dialogue. For this first approach, we will simply use a key event in the player controller. Open your player controller class and add a key event in the event graph. To play a dialogue, call play dialogue on the dialogue master component. You must provide a few input parameters. Dialogue, select the asset you want to play. NPC, we don't have one yet. Player, this is the control pawn. User object, we won't use it for now, we'll cover it later. NPC manual references, used for manual linking, also covered later. Compile and save. Now let's test. When we press K, we can see things aren't exactly behaving as expected. The camera is way too high. That brings us to the next point. Dialogue and Quest Master will need a little help to properly position its camera, and fortunately it's very easy to provide that help. Let's go back to the character blueprint. In the viewport, you can see that the character's origin is not actually at their feet. To fix this, we can implement the DialogActor Interface, which allows us to precisely define the relative position of the character's feet and the correct facing rotation. To implement the interface, go to Class Settings and add DialogActor Interface to the list of implemented interfaces. This adds the function getDialogActor ground root transform, which we can now implement. It expects a transform as the return value. We'll use an arrow component to calculate this transform. Add an arrow component to the character and place it exactly at the character's feet, pointing forward. Here we can see the capsule has a half height of 90, so we set the arrow Z offset to -90. The arrow is already pointing in the correct direction, so no rotation adjustment is needed. Go back to the function implementation and simply return the arrow's relative transform. Dialog and Quest Master will then use this to position the camera correctly. Compile and save and test again. The camera should now be placed properly. Wonderful. Now let's test in client mode to ensure everything works in multiplayer. Ouch. The camera isn't restored correctly at the end of the dialogue. Luckily, there's another interface that fixes this easily. Go back to the character blueprint. In class settings, add DialogueMaster Blendout Camera Override Interface. Implement Get Blendout Camera Override and simply return self. If you use a more complex camera setup with a dedicated camera subactor, return that actor instead. Test again. Problem solved. While we're on the topic of interfaces you can implement on characters, let me show you the last two. First you have DialogueActorNameOverride Interface. This interface lets you dynamically override the name displayed in subtitles. This is useful in multiplayer to show player names, or if you want a character to appear as unknown until they introduce themselves. The function getDialogueActorNameOverride just returns a text value. You can return whatever you want. I'll just return a fixed value to demonstrate. Test it. We can see player is now replaced by overridden name. And finally we have DialogueMasterCharacter Interface. This one allows adding custom behavior at dialogue start and end. CanEnterDialogue returns a boolean. If you return true the dialogue can start, if false it will be cancelled. Useful to prevent dialogue during combat etc. OnBeforeEnterDialogue lets you delay the start of the dialogue, for example to sheath a weapon or finish an animation. You receive a user object, which is the same object passed to play dialogue. Return the time you need before the dialogue begins. OnDialogue and lets you resume what the NPC was doing previously, crafting, working, etc. Let's quickly test this. Since we returned 2 in OnBeforeEnterDialogue, pressing K now adds a 2-second delay before entering dialogue. If we return 0, the dialogue starts instantly. If CanEnterDialogue returns false, dialogue cannot start at all. I'll put it back to true so we can continue. Now let's add an NPC to the scene and see how to start a dialogue using the Dialogue Actor component. Dialogue and Quest Master includes a BP_dialogue character, found in the plugins content folder. Add it to the level. For now we'll give it Manny's appearance and apply the default AnimBP. Add a BPC_dialogue_actor component to it. This lets you select a dialogue to start when the player approaches, and define the trigger sphere radius. Let's test. When we walk up to the NPC, the dialogue starts automatically. We now know how to start a dialogue manually or through the Dialogue Actor component. Next, I'm going to show you how to use Interaction Master, if you have it installed, to play a dialogue through the Interaction SYST. First, go to Edit, Plugins, enable Interaction Master and restart Unreal Engine. Once the editor has restarted, we can add the elements needed for the user interface. Since this is a third-person project, I'll use the widget actor, which automatically displays the interaction widget above the actor you can interact with. You'll find it in the Plugins Content folder under Interaction Master Content, Blueprints, Widget Actor. Place a BP_interaction widget actor in the level. Next, in the player controller, we'll add the input handlers for interaction, as well as the interactor component. When we press the interaction key, we call Start Interaction on the interactor. When we release it, we call Stop Interaction. We also pass the input action to start interaction. Then we add the interaction input action to our mapping context. I'm binding it to the E key. Now we replace the Dialogue Actor component with an interactable play dialogue component. Select the dialogue you want to play when interacting. You can also set the NPC's display name through interactable name. We now need to adjust the project's collision settings. By default, pawns do not block the visibility channel. If you want more advanced control, you can create a dedicated collision channel. See the Interaction Master tutorial for details. for now. Set visibility to block. I also set camera to overlap so the camera doesn't jerk when walking next to an NPC. Next, we'll update the interactable search strategy so they fit a third-person setup. Go back to the player controller, select the interactor component, and add 2 search strategies. First we add search around player, which is great for third-person games, and then trace screen center, that works well for first-person games. Here we combine the 2 strategies for a better result, but you could use only search around player if you prefer. Let's test it. Great. Everything works perfectly. We still have a few small things to cover in this episode. I haven't shown you manual linking yet, but first, I want to show you how to easily add a dialogue line for our NPC in the dialogue we created earlier. Reopen the dialogue. We'll add the information for our test NPC directly in the dialogue asset. Since we probably won't reuse it, there's no need to create a separate speaker configuration. Set a unique tag in the actor unique identifier field. We'll add this to the NPC instance to use tag linking, an actor name that will appear in subtitles, and a default camera. For NPCs, I recommend using front left actor camera. Now we can add a dialogue line at the end of the existing nodes by dragging from the last node's output pin. Enter any text you like for their line. Next, let's tag our actor. Select the NPC in the viewport and add the tag that matches the unique actor identifier we just set. Let's test it. The camera switches correctly when the NPC speaks. Everything works perfectly. As a bonus, if you adjust the dialogue camera blend time, for example, to 1 second, the transitions in and out of dialogue become really smooth. Test it. Nice. This is truly amazing. To wrap up this video, let's take a look at manual linking. Most of the time you won't need it. But if you want to use Dialogue and Quest Master with procedural NPCs, like I did in the Matrix Awakens demo, it becomes essential. This lets you bring your environment to life, with potentially random or contextual dialogues when the player encounters procedural NPCs. I won't do a full procedural NPC demo here, but I will show you how to pass a manual reference to Dialogue and Quest Master so it can link without using tags, which isn't possible with procedural NPCs. First, remove the tag from the NPC, as well as any components that start a dialogue, dialogue actor component, or if you use Interaction Master, the interactable play dialogue component. Next, create a class derived from dialogue actor component, give it a name and open this new class. We can override the play dialogue function to modify its behavior. Let's check how the parent class implements it. You'll see it calls play dialogue on the dialogue master component. The base component also already handles manual linking using the NPC manual references array parameter in play dialogue. I'll show you how to do it manually and explain a few extra details. Back in our implementation, remove the call to the parent class function. Dialogue and Quest Master provides get dialogue master component from controller, which, as its name suggests, retrieves the dialogue master component from a controller. We'll get the controller from the player parameter. Since the parameter is an actor, and actors don't have controllers, we first cast it to pawn. If the cast succeeds, we get the controller using getController and pass it to get dialogue master component from controller. Now we can call play dialogue on the dialogue master component. We pass all available parameters, dialogue, NPC, player, and user object. When using manual linking, you must pass an array of actor references to NPC manual references. There is a very important constraint. If you have multiple NPCs using manual linking, the order of the array must match the order of declaration in the dialogue asset. Only include the references of NPCs using manual linking. Otherwise, the dialogue may behave unpredictably. By default, the component passes an array containing only the owner. In that case, if you use tag linking, it's not used. If you use manual linking, it works directly without any problem. You only need to worry about NPC order when working on environmental dialogues involving multiple procedural NPCs, which isn't the case in every project. Once the function is implemented, go back to the level, select the NPC, and add your new custom component for manual linking. Set the dialogue in the trigger sphere radius again. Now, modify the dialogue asset to configure the NPC for manual linking. Remove the unique actor identifier, it's not needed with manual linking. Check that the NPC's tag is removed. Let's test it. When the player approaches, the dialogue starts automatically. The player is linked via tag linking. And the NPC is found via manual linking. Everything works perfectly, and that brings us to the end of this video. By now, you should know how to create your first dialogue and navigate the dialogue editor. We explored actor configuration, both using speaker data assets and directly within the dialogue asset. We also covered the different character linking methods, including tag linking and direct reference linking. Finally, you've seen how to play dialogues in multiple ways, through a direct call to the play dialogue function, using the dialogue actor component, and even integrating with Interaction Master for automatic interaction-based dialogue playback. With these fundamentals in place, you're ready to start building dynamic and engaging conversations for your game. In the next video, we'll continue exploring the dialogue system. We'll dive into dialogue trees and advanced features, learn how to use conditions and actions to extend the system, create custom shots, and much more. After that, we'll move on to the quest system and see how to create and manage quests in your project. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.